Rome was the most powerful empire the world had ever known, yet in one single year it collapsed inward, not because of foreign invasion or natural disaster, but because the heart of Rome itself began to beat in blood. In 68 AD, the empire's last great and infamous emperor, Nero, ended his life in a desperate act of cowardice and resignation, and with his death the Roman world suddenly discovered a terrifying truth: there was no clear path to succession, no chosen heir, no stable transition. For decades the empire had been ruled by emperors whose power was absolute, but that power was maintained through loyalty, fear, and the unspoken agreement that the emperor's will was the law. When that emperor died without a secure successor, the system revealed its weakness. Nero had alienated the Senate, drained the treasury, and punished anyone who dared question him. His reign had been marked by extravagance, cruelty, and paranoia, and when rebellion spread through the provinces, he was left with no allies. In the end, he fled, and the once great ruler of Rome found himself alone, begging for death, and his final words, supposedly, "What an artist dies in me," became the final irony of a man who had destroyed Rome's stability for the sake of his own vanity. With Nero gone, the empire did not mourn, it panicked. Governors and generals who had been held in check by the fear of Nero suddenly saw a chance to seize power, and Rome's political system, already fragile, began to fracture. In the power vacuum, one man rose first, Servius Sulpicius Galba, an elderly senator known for his strict discipline and conservative values, who was proclaimed emperor by his legions in Spain. Galba represented a return to traditional Roman virtues, a rejection of Nero's excess, and at first, many welcomed him. The Senate hoped for stability, the people hoped for reform, and the soldiers hoped for rewards. But Galba's rule quickly turned sour. He was stingy, rigid, and untrusting, and his harsh treatment of soldiers and officials made him deeply unpopular. He refused to pay the troops who had supported him, and he executed rivals without trial, signaling that his reign would be defined by fear rather than fairness. Worse still, Galba chose an heir not because of merit or loyalty, but because of political convenience. He adopted a young man named Piso Licinianus, a choice that angered many who had expected Galba to reward those who had fought for him. Among those angered most was Marcus Salvius Otho, a former ally and close friend of Nero, who had been promised the throne and then betrayed. Otho was ambitious, charming, and ruthless, and he understood the true nature of power in Rome: it was not given. It was taken. When he realized Galba would not name him successor, he began to conspire. Otho knew the Praetorian Guard, the elite soldiers tasked with protecting the emperor, were the true power behind the throne. The guard had grown used to bribery and manipulation, and Otho knew that with enough money and influence, he could turn them to his side. On January 15, 69 AD, Otho's plan came to fruition. The Praetorian Guard, driven by greed and disillusionment, turned on Galba. The emperor was dragged from his palace, humiliated, and murdered in the streets of Rome. His body was thrown aside like a discarded relic, and in a city that had once celebrated its leaders with grand triumphs, Galba's death became a public spectacle of betrayal. Otho was proclaimed emperor, but his victory was already stained with blood. The Senate, desperate for stability, accepted Otho, but the provinces did not. The legions in the east had already chosen their own leader, and the empire was now divided between rival factions. Otho's rule lasted only 3 months, yet those months were enough to show how quickly Rome's power structure could crumble. Otho's greatest mistake was underestimating the ambition of the legions. In the province of Germania, the armies had proclaimed Vitellius as emperor, a man known for his indulgence and brutality, and Vitellius supporters marched toward Rome with a force that could not be ignored. Otho faced a choice: to fight, to surrender, or to attempt diplomacy. He chose war, hoping to defend his claim and prove that the throne could not be bought by another. The decisive battle occurred near Bedriacum, in northern Italy, where Otho's forces met Vitellius' army. The battle was fierce and chaotic, but Vitellius' legions were larger, better organized, and more motivated. Otho's troops were demoralized, and as the fighting turned into a slaughter, the reality of Rome's new age became clear. The emperor was no longer a sacred ruler chosen by destiny, he was a prize for the strongest army. Otho realized the bloodshed would only escalate if he continued, and in a rare act of mercy, he chose to end his own life rather than prolong the war. His suicide was not an act of cowardice but a desperate attempt to stop the cycle of violence. Otho's death allowed Vitellius to enter Rome in triumph, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if the empire might finally stabilize. But Vitellius' victory was hollow. He was a man who loved luxury, feasting, and cruelty, and he lacked the discipline or charisma needed to unite the empire. His reign was marked by indulgence and excess, and he quickly became despised by the people and feared by the Senate. The provinces, witnessing the instability in Rome, began to question whether the empire could survive such chaos. Meanwhile, far from the capital, another power was rising. In the eastern provinces, a general named Titus Flavius Vespasianus, better known as Vespasian, was leading successful campaigns against Jewish rebels in Judea. Vespasian was a seasoned military commander, respected by his troops, and known for his discipline and pragmatism. Unlike the decadent Vitellius, Vespasian understood that the empire needed stability and order, not luxury and spectacle. His soldiers admired him, and as the news of Rome's chaos spread, many began to see Vespasian as the only man capable of restoring the empire. In July of 69 AD, the Senate in the eastern provinces declared Vespasian emperor, and his forces began to move westward toward Rome. The empire was now split into three competing powers, Vitellius in Rome, Vespasian in the east, and the memory of Otho and Galba lingering like ghosts. The stage was set for a civil war that would turn Rome into a battlefield. As Vespasian's forces advanced, Vitellius attempted to negotiate, but the negotiations failed. The legions in Rome were divided, and many were more loyal to their commanders than to the emperor himself. The Praetorian Guard, once the symbol of imperial protection, had become a corrupt tool for whoever could pay them. Rome's streets became tense with fear, and the city's citizens knew that another bloody conflict was approaching. When Vespasian's forces finally reached the outskirts of Rome, the city erupted into chaos. The final battle was not fought on a distant plain but within the heart of the empire. Vespasian's soldiers, led by the capable general Marcus Antonius Primus, clashed with Vitellius' troops in brutal street fighting. The city became a battlefield, and Rome's ancient buildings, once symbols of power and civilization, became shields and towers for soldiers. Fires broke out, and the smoke turned the sky red. The sound of battle echoed through the streets as citizens fled in terror. Vitellius, who had once been celebrated by his supporters, now became a desperate figure, watching his empire crumble. The fighting intensified, and the violence became personal. Soldiers killed not only enemies but also civilians, plundering homes and taking revenge on those who had opposed them. The empire's moral fabric tore apart, and Rome's reputation as the center of civilization was stained with blood. Eventually, Vitellius was captured. His fate was cruel and humiliating, a reflection of the empire's collapse. He was dragged through the streets, mocked, and executed. His body was thrown into the Tiber River, a final insult to a man who had once held absolute power. With Vitellius gone, Vespasian emerged as the victor, but the victory was not triumphant. The empire had been weakened by months of civil war, and the cost in lives and resources was immense. Rome had crowned 4 emperors in 1 year, and each transition had been marked by betrayal and murder. The year 69 AD proved that the emperor was no longer a divine ruler but a pawn of the military. The legions, once loyal servants of Rome, had become the empire's greatest threat. The Praetorian Guard, once protectors, had become corrupt mercenaries. The Senate, once powerful, had become a helpless observer. Rome had survived, but it had been scarred. Vespasian's reign would bring stability, and his dynasty would restore order, but the damage had been done. The empire had learned a dangerous lesson: power could be seized through violence, and the throne could be bought, fought for, and stolen. The bloodiest year in Roman history had revealed the empire's weakness, and though it continued to rule for centuries, the memory of 69 AD remained a dark warning. It was a year when Rome was not united by glory but torn apart by ambition, and the true enemy was not a foreign invader but the hunger for power that lived inside the hearts of men. This was the year Rome became its own worst enemy, and history, for reasons unknown, often chooses to forget it.